We are still missing a handful of board members. This is true.
We don't even have.
Let me go
there's
grab Terry.
We don't have a court, which at least there. Oh, wait, Karen's on. Okay.
Okay. Found a lone board member. He was sauntering in the hallway with a presenter. Oh, jeez.
We're going to call him Chief Horsley from now on. Just call him
Good
Chief.
thing I have a mask on.
Okay, Chief. I have a student who calls me Coach. Okay, Coach.
I'm just kidding, man.
Okay, it is 5:02 on Tuesday, February 1st, and we are going to go ahead and get started. And we are going to start by stating who's here. Karen, are you online? Can you hear us?
Karen, can you hear us?
Karen went to go get her Diet Coke. We can barely hear you too, Karen. Hang on.
You can hear us okay, Karen?
Yeah, I can hear you. I didn't hear Nicole. But anyway, Karen and her.
Nicole's not speaking into her microphone. So.
It's true.
I was, but okay. Go ahead, Clark.
Clark Nelson.
Chris Wynn.
Connie Burgess.
Julie Jackson.
Terry Bodden.
Nicole McDermott.
David Garrett.
And Rich Nye will be joining us soon. He was up at the Capitol and will be here momentarily. So we are going to go ahead and get started with our administration reports for our 5 o'clock meeting. We have a construction and capital project update by Don Adams and Justin Nagel, and we'll turn the time over to them.
You want to start us off with security, Joe?
Yeah. So for security upgrades, the next slide, please, whoever's driving. Oh, there we go, thank you. We've moved Oak Ridge to the completed, even though you'll see in just a minute, we got a few punch list items, but the ones circled there in purple are the 2 that we're about to bid here in the next week. And the ones in green are our designer, our architect is actually putting together drawings. So as we continue to check off these schools, you can see the progress. We've got the 4 to the right under pending. Those are the 4 that we have not yet started. And those should be designed by the end of the calendar year this year. We'll see where the budgets lie to see if we can actually implement those and get them under construction. But that's where we're moving, so we've made good progress there on the security projects. As I mentioned, Oak Ridge, I'll show you some slides, but we're just working on punch list items. There's 2 from the outside, as exterior, as you drive up there and you see that. If you've not had a chance to go up there and see that, it's turned out really well. We'll jump inside there.
Just quickly, so we talk about the new addition and its ability to not only create the secure entry vestibule after school has started, but also its improvement to ADA accessibility. So historically, you had to go around the back side of the building, arrive early, drive through a playground, and access the upper deck. This allows you to secure and have a safe playground. It allows people to come in off of the main parking. So ADA parking is now moved to the western frontage of the building. And importantly, there is a room on that lower level. I think they've used it for music practice programs, et cetera, that if you were a student that had ADA accessibility needs, you really couldn't access that lower level instructional space. Now you can. So this is a big win on the design and how this functions, not only for security, but just frankly, overall use of the building.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to mention this. You see the next slide there to the right, you see the elevator, the stainless door beyond. That's the elevator. If you come in the main doors and turn left, you see that elevator right there. This is upstairs where the old doors were, and that elevator gets you up and down. So anybody in a wheelchair or any special needs like that, accommodations are needed, there you have an elevator right there. There's the stairs that wrap around. This also shows the architects used some colored glass in some random spots. I was up there the other day, and it's fun because that glass, the light comes through there and lights up this white subway tile behind, and there's some fun color things going on there. the stairs wraps around the elevator tower, so anybody can come in there and go upstairs, or if you need the elevator, you certainly can use that. As Mr. Adams mentioned, the room downstairs is a huge benefit because now they can reach that room safely and securely, and as soon as COVID, we get beyond COVID a little further, she's gonna be able to hire a teacher for that space. So this lobby, the lower picture there, well, all three of those pictures are looking on the lowest level as you pull up. That music room is right to the right of that bottom slide, if you will. To the left, it wraps up and goes up the stairs, or there's the elevator right there, and really nice feature. As Dawn mentioned again, the old way of getting anybody up there to the school is drive around the back, drive on the playground, which we hate, right? Driving cars on playgrounds with kiddos, and so now we don't have to do that anymore. Here's your ADA accessible entry and secure vestibule all in one, which is super nice.
As we delve into our three main new construction projects, we've had quite a bit of conversations happening between staff members and some board members about new construction and getting a better understanding of what maybe all-in costs are, what it costs to build a building, what things we look at, and what things we budget for to make all of this happen. So earlier we had discussed, and by the way, this is a new slide, not in your packet. We apologize for that, but we thought after hearing from some of the board members, we could add this in and it would be of benefit. In prior discussions, we talked about change orders, what those were, what process that was, what type of legal instrument it was, to help you understand as we review change orders, what they could mean or what they're trying to say. When we talk about all-in costs or costs of a school, often we unfairly focus on the construction cost, what the contractor's bid is. And we often fail to have a more global discussion about some of the other things. And so it's become what school districts, what DFCM, what others report as a school construction cost. Everybody does report and speak to that construction number. But behind the scenes, let's talk about some of those things that are out there. Design costs, and we're giving you kind of what a percent would be. The design costs are 5 or 6% of the construction cost of the building, or the estimate going in. If you were to hire an outside construction manager, you could be paying anywhere between 1% or 2%. We talk very openly and often about the construction hard cost. That's the bid number for the contractor. That's the bricks and sticks that build the building and the parking lots and the play fields. That's the hard cost construction number. We also carry funds for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It takes a lot to equip a school, from chairs to desks to copiers and printers and computer switches and technology behind the scenes. We often have off-site infrastructure fees. So as we're building new buildings, we're bringing them up to code. A city may look at us, or a water department may look at us and say, oh, you owe us an impact fee because you're putting a larger water connection in because you now have fire sprinklers, or any number of things. And so we carry around 0.1% to pay for those type of impact fees that special service districts or municipalities can charge. Asbestos abatement, so when we're doing demolition of an existing facility or parts of an existing facility, we carry an abatement number. School districts as a government entity are highly regulated in the abatement and disposal of asbestos-containing materials. And so we would do much more than, we are required to do much more than some other entities, maybe an individual homeowner or et cetera, would be required to do. And so we always carry in our budget an abatement number. 1% to 1.5% is a, I don't want to call it conservative. It's a number that we found seems to work for us, but often you can find technology blanking out on you right when you need it the most.
I'm not sure what happened there.
Did we run out of battery?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Took a dive.
Lost it all.
Plug in.
So Karen might be offline. She will be offline as well, right?
You all have a copy of the presentation, correct?
It's not this
No, this
particular
was a new
slide.
slide.
Don, can you send that to us, that
Yeah,
particular?
we're happy to update that, absolutely. Oh, look at that, that's coming up pretty well.
Ask her if she can hear us.
Karen, can you hear us now?
Okay. Yes, now I'm back. Okay, that was weird. It just froze. Sorry.
No, that was our end, so thank you.
Right there?
Yeah, there we go. Okay. It's not projecting up.
Go ahead and continue.
It's like when you flies.
Oh, well, we'll try and talk you through this. Oh,
There we go. Okay, right there. You're good. Thank you.
thank you.
Scroll down.
Thank you. Wonderful. So we were talking about asbestos abatement, and our schools were built in an era where asbestos-containing materials were more commonplace than not. It could be anything from in your drywall, in your joint compound, in your ceiling tiles, in your paint, in your floor tiles, and in your insulation. So we just happened to be a growing district during that era, and so we often face this challenge. We often consider temporary building usage. So if we're doing an extensive remodel or a rebuild on site, we often need to bring in relocatable buildings or et cetera to temporarily house operations. And so that's a line item that we would carry. Demolition. So sometimes we will demolish a building before a contractor gets on site, or sometimes we will ask them to do the work for us. Westlake's a primary example where we did the demolition early. We had relocated Westlake to a temporary facility, and we had the luxury of doing demolition and abatement early, and so we did that. If we're doing the demolition, we'll carry a % or two in for that cost as well. Special testing. Certain welds need special inspection that we don't have the equipment or the expertise to do, so we'll send that out. Concrete, we'll send concrete to labs so they can break the concrete to make sure it hardens at the right level. So we carry some fees there, and then of course there's land acquisition. If we're buying land for a school, Cypress is a primary example where we purchase land for a new site. We'll carry that cost in. Skyline, we added a little bit of land. And keeping in mind that land has a longer history to it where in the future, the board may decide to surplus some land that a school once sat on. And so there could be a return of that investment, just like on some of the temporary buildings, we may sell them or we may keep them as an asset. So those type of numbers are carried differently in the overall budgeting concept, but those are things that we include in our background numbers, things that we budget for to make sure that we have funds on hand through Dave Garrett's office, through the budgeting office. We make sure that we include all of these costs. We apologize, and we understand from a line of questioning, we haven't always explained all of those background numbers to you, and we apologize that we could be more accurate as we develop these all-in costs.
Are those numbers included in the costs that you've given us for the building?
So what you've focused on, as you've seen individual packages as a board, when we talk about a contractor's bid, that would just be the contractor hard cost number. Earlier,
Those numbers aren't included.
not all of them. So earlier you would have seen the designer's number. You approved a designer contract. Then you approved a contractor bid cost. Not all of these things are reflected in those numbers. And so we're carrying that in a budget to complete the building, but have not said, okay, here's the tally of all the all-in numbers. At the end of the day, you could make a presumption that 15% additional funding is out there above and beyond construction hard cost to fully furnish a building.
So we have that money in our budget.
Yes, it is part of the planned spend when we do new schools.
So like this MOCA construction management, has that been included in that? Because I've never heard of that until now. Or talking about Skyline and Cypress.
We have been carrying that number in a planned spend budget. Whether we decide to move forward with that or not, you could save money.
We have the monies in there to cover all that.
Yes,
Okay.
Ron, can I ask a follow-up question?
please.
So, well, I have a comment, well, no, I have a lot of questions. Let me try to be concise. So, my first question is this slide that you just went through with these additional costs for FFE and asbestos. I guess my big concern here is why was this not presented to us back when we were talking about the 1.74 million? I have big concerns because when we approved Skyline, for example, at 1.7 or 171.7, yeah, whatever, $174 million, I think my interpretation, as well as many on the board, was basically that indeed this was a cap, that it was never communicated to the board clearly that the 174 was just the building, and now all of a sudden we are getting hundreds of thousands of change orders that are above and beyond the 174. So I guess my big question is, why are we hearing about this in February and not back in October when this was all under the microscope for board approval?
Sure, and let me see if I can, part of it is, historically, we've brought things in chunks, and maybe as we've learned from this series of discussions, that's not the best thing to do, right? So historically, and this predates me, probably 2 or 3 predecessors back, and is common practice in construction, where you bring these chunks, the designer chunk, the construction chunk, the furnishing package chunk, et cetera. And so we've done that, and most recently we've done that with the elementary schools. In hindsight, knowing the type of confusion that it's causing, that is not a best practice, and we can change that going into the future. That's just been a common practice at our district and at other locations. And so when we were talking about the Hughes construction number back in October, we were hyper-focused on just calling it the Hughes construction number. This is the construction cost. And again, it was maybe just out of, it certainly wasn't out of malice. It certainly wasn't, an advertent act. It's just what we have historically done. And so we can start to talk about the all-in cost numbers from this point forward because we carry those budgeted items. It just was a miscommunication or a communication style that we had used historically to do that. And so your point is taken.
I would somewhat disagree in the fact that I don't recall we ever called it a Hughes construction number. And this is where the greatest confusion is. We called it the Skyline cost number. And so I would just hope that, boy, we've got to be better. These numbers are so high that we really have to be better in our communication to get everybody on the same page, because we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, and that's a big deal to me.
No, agreed, we can and will do better. We
I
agree.
agree with that too. So, what was my question? Let me think this. Is the money that we have in budget for that money that comes from the bond, or is it money that's come from elsewhere?
It is part of the bonding budget process. So remember, we're doing a bond and pay-as-you-go process. It is all part of that.
So that really does need to be included in the presentation to us, I really believe, in the future. Because that's all part of the bond money that we went to the public and asked them to.
Yes, very good lesson learned. We, again, historically have just brought it in those individualized chunks, and we can put it in a more holistic package coming forward.
I would like to see that.
Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
Julie has a comment, and then Clark, and then Chris.
Okay, so if I'm adding all of that up, I think it was about 15%, all of those numbers, which of 174 million is 26 million additional, and that's about per building.
Yes, we're expecting a little less than that as our numbers refined over time. We're carrying an approximate another 22 million per building to absorb all of the other costs. And again, a large chunk of that is your furnishings. There was land acquisition that was a large part of that. The design money has already been contracted out. That was, in this instance, a little less than 5%. And so those are our rough budgeting numbers. That's what we carry as the budget. So, but 15% is a good rule of thumb estimate as you've calculated.
I think I should clarify that, though. That's not 15% of the hard construction cost. That's 15% of the overall cost, correct? Which would make, as a percent of the hard construction cost, a higher percentage. I'm sorry to be a math nerd about it here,
No, I completely
but that's the
concur.
point.
No, we run those percents as what we believe the hard construction cost number is. So design would be 5% of the estimated hard construction number.
Then I apologize. The slide says all-in cost, so I'm taking those percentages to be 5 to 6% for design of the all-in cost.
Yeah,
That's not correct?
We use the construction cost as the basis of analysis. It's that number multiplied by those percentages that then roll out the other costs.
Sure, and I get that, and I think that, not to be repetitive of Terry's comments, but therein lies the issue of the communication in the past, is that we
Agreed.
were taking that as the total cost, not an additional 15 or more percentage points of the hard construction costs.
As part of my comment, so when I was looking at the budget, I don't remember seeing this. I feel like I would have zoned in on that. So I'm wondering if you would just send us the piece of the capital budget and help us identify where this is budgeted so that we can see that and understand
I'll
that.
work with Brian Ibsen to do that.
That'd be
He
great.
manages that, but we have a calculation that's rolling out there.
And also because I want to make sure, I must have seen something and not known what it was and thought I knew what it was when I looked at it. And so I want to be able to make sure that when I'm looking at that, I know what I'm seeing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because if it was in the budget, then we also could have seen it there, So we must not have read it right. You see what I'm saying?
Again, I'll
'Cause
work
it's
with
in
Brian and bring that sheet. Yeah.
Julie's question was kind of the same as mine. As I looked at it, that I assumed that budget was the whole encompassing budget also. So I would like to see it in the capital if we could. That would be
Yeah. No,
Great.
yes.
Karen, did you get all your questions answered?
I have one more question. I just wanted to voice the concern with one of the change orders, and it's the MOCA one at the cost of $52,000, 88 some odd, whatever. I am just a little concerned with the process that went through. Now, let me be clear, I don't have a concern about paying MOCA the $52,000 because they indeed did the work and they outlined that well in the change order. But I have to call out the process that it went through, that we allowed MOCA to work without a contract, knowingly, for 4 months, and now we're coming to the board in a change order and say, well, they did the work, so we have to pay them. I would like to ask why in August, knowing that contract was gonna expire, knowing that we still needed their work through the end of December, why were we not approached as a board to approve even a short 4-month contract on the front end? Because it does not feel right where the district admin is spending money the board has not technically approved yet. I don't think I don't agree with that practice at all. It's not a best practice. So my concern isn't paying MOCA $52,000. My concern is, can you speak to why the board was not approached in July or August to approve an addition to the contract for those 4 months?
Yeah, let me see if I can take a stab at that. So we knew, like you said, we knew this was coming to an end, the contract was coming to an end. The initial contract was for design services, and we rolled that over. There was money left in there, we rolled that over, and as we were trying to negotiate, work through some different things, and figure out also our needs. That's the other thing, is we haven't still figured out exactly what we need, and we're working on that currently. But is it a service like this? Is it an additional position within our department? What is it that we need? And we're working through that, trying to look at cost and everything else. They being MOCA, were on a pre-approved state contract. So those prices have been vetted through the state contract. So we knew those prices were there, and that's what they were charging us. And we essentially went forward, as a lot of times you do with the contract. You just continue time and materials and track it, maybe kind of like, track it, time and materials, and until we can get this thing figured out. I don't think we have any intention in August this was going to go 4 months, and here we are with the 4 months that have been outlined here. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. I think part of it, though, is simply trying to figure out where we're at, right, and how we best handle the situation we're in with manpower versus do we have an outside source, a MOCA, or whatever. So I don't know. Does that help a little bit understand how we got here? Maybe it doesn't. I'm not trying to excuse it, but does that explain a little?
I appreciate the context. I just want to voice my concern that I don't want this practice to continue to where the board is basically, handcuffed to pay these change orders because the money's already been spent. I don't think that's good practice. We're an approval board, and I don't know, maybe this is just my thing, board members, you can chime in if this is something you would agree with or not. I can't really see it well, but anyway, I just wanted to voice my concern. I don't like the process that went through to get to that change order.
Fair enough. Yes.
I'll speak to that. I totally support that, Karen, and was concerned with it as well. And I mean, especially with 4 months, there's plenty of time to, in a month, things happen and you have to pay for them before they get approved. But 4 months is a much different thing.
To be clear, the other change orders that we're being presented with, those are forward-looking, correct? Not in arrears?
No, that's not correct, unfortunately. The Elevate, the two for the furniture are definitely looking at going forward, right? The one that's for Elevate for it's DFA number 7 for their services. Those are services that they've rendered through the process. Unfortunately, we've asked, and I'm not putting anybody on the bus, we've asked that we get those in a timely fashion. Unfortunately, these did not all hit until they finally billed us for all these services. But these were services they needed to keep the buildings live. We can talk through in a minute. But that work has been done to keep the building schedule moving forward. That DFA number 7.
That's for the buildings at Skyline. In the phased
That was the one for
approach.
70,700.
Yeah.
Karen, I agree with you and Julie. Whatever changes we need to make, I think we need to make them. And what's happened has happened, and I'm not making light of that because these are taxpayers' funds that we're asking for. So we just ask that you make whatever corrections need to be made.
Did we lose Karen again?
She struggles to hear when you guys aren't talking right into that.
She struggles to hear because I think we lost the system again.
I just agreed with you, Karen.
Connie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just thanks, Karen, for mentioning that.
Yeah, I don't know if Karen can hear us or not. It sounds like the board is a kind of a consensus that in the future, this is what we'd like to hear. My question for you, Donna, and I know you're in the process of trying to figure that out.
Yep.
As we based our bonds, did we base that on the FFE? What did we base, or not the FFE, sorry, the total cost? Did we base that on the total cost? What, the all-in price?
Yep.
And when we get that to us, is that what you're presenting to us is the all-in price?
So remember, the bonding analysis has gone through a couple of revisions, right? When we started to hit those construction spikes. So that's when we started to delay, right? Because construction costs outpaced our estimates. So when we've been revising the estimates, we've been trying to, as best as we can, provide all-in type numbers, right? And so the challenge that we face in these longer-term forecasts often depend upon our ability to reduce some costs based upon maybe reuse of furniture and equipment, or. Each is a little bit different. So I'm not carrying in my forecast the full large percentage numbers that you're seeing today, because on some buildings I can save. And so I try and blend those forecast numbers. That's a long answer to a short question, but we're trying to carry all of these costs forward in our forecasts. But again, you know that we've had to delay projects because of increased construction cost, and those costs do have trickle-down impacts on furnishings and things of that nature because they're going up as well.
So, and then along with that, the MOCA issue that was brought up, was that not already included? Because they were already, with their contract, wasn't that already included in the budget? Why is this appearing as a change order instead of just already part of what we had already approved? Can you explain that?
I think I can, and it also can go to the two design fee adjustments for the furnishings component. Often we ask consultants to give us a cost estimate for longer than we contract for. So our initial contract was not for all of construction, partly because we were uncertain if we would need it. Again, these are long lead projects where we're making best guess decisions 4 years in advance, and we try and sometimes parse out the amount that we're contracting for so we can make better decisions when we have more and better information. So as Justin articulated, the original scope for their services was not a through construction scope. It was through design and some initial work.
Okay.
And so there was surplus left, and so we kept them working. And now Justin's saying, hey, we need to revisit what we want of that service. And so that's where the change order would come in. So we may be carrying it in a budget, but we didn't contract for it because we weren't certain that we would want that service in perpetuity through the project.
Okay.
Okay, so and that goes, and when we get into the specific projects, that's when we thought we'd address the specific change orders, and you'll see us relate that on two of the Elevate design concepts as well. Why we want to pick up that service now when we didn't 4 and 5 years ago.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
I just have a quick question. So in the past, when we've been working on schools like our elementaries, is this the same type practice we've been doing?
Yes.
And so this is not anything unusual? This has just not ever been presented this way?
Correct, yes, yes. So the elementary is a great example. When we built those, a design contract was brought forward to the board, approved. A construction number was brought forward to the board, approved. A furnishings number was brought forward to the board and approved. So it's always been approved in chunks, while behind the scenes we had an overall budget to cover those. We never bring something to the board that we don't have a budget for.
And maybe I can just add, not to excuse anything, but that's prior to my 11 years here, my 8 years in Salt Lake District was the same way. When we were building new buildings there, the practices, so in my eyes, right, we've been doing what we've been doing for a long time. It doesn't excuse that you didn't understand or weren't in the loop, weren't communicated with. But that is the mode of operation that I think is general in a lot of districts. I can't speak to every district, but I think that's what's been going on. We certainly can change that, and we certainly can communicate, absolutely.
I think costs have just been amplified. Everyone's much more aware because costs have gone up so high. I think we just
Especially with this project.
need to modify, yeah, so, yeah.
That may be true, but I think this is the right time for me to make this comment that I do wonder how the vote would have been different with the Skyline approval had the board appreciated that it was closer to $200 million rather than 174. Being the lone no vote on that, I'm particularly sensitive to it, but I have to think that at least would have made some people pause in that approval process. So I don't know where we go from here in that regard, but I think I feel compelled to make that comment.
Julie, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I would appreciate it if we as a board and an executive team of the district made sure that we really understood and had a common vocabulary for this, so that when we say the total cost of Skyline, we all know what that means, or when we say the all-in cost, what that means, or I just want to make sure that I don't have that misconception again 2 years from now when this is not in the main issue in my mind. And so I think it would be good if we could, I guess that when we want to talk about this, that it's the all-in costs, that means all of these items. When we say all-in costs, and when we say, how much does it cost? See, now I'm not sure which answer I'm getting. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm worried about my vocabulary now to make sure that my communication's clear.
So I think, Don, it's been made pretty clear through either private conversations that you've had or tonight, hopefully, that what we're desiring for you to bring from here out, as we, just so we're clear, because I think, none of us work in construction and we're not familiar as familiar with it. And I said, well, I guess this is on us that we didn't ask the right questions in part, but we also feel like, we need to know this, all of this is right up front. So I think we've made that clear, and hopefully from now on, thank you for going through this and helping us understand it better. But from here on out.
Yes, we will endeavor to do better. We realize that unfortunately, we're kind of two ships passing in the night on our terminologies. So, yeah, absolutely, we can improve on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Westlake, we actually have a construction fence around the site and a job trailer on the site, and we've got a contract out to them yesterday, so they will be probably the first of next week, if not the end of this week, really going hot and heavy at Westlake Junior High. That's Hogan Construction. We're excited to work with them, and so I don't know if there's anything else to say other than I do see that we've got on here a date for the...
I think we addressed that at the end of
the groundbreaking?
I think we have that as a separate discussion.
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
excuse me, okay.
It's okay.
Ignore that line. We'll come to that later. Skyline High School, maybe we could just jump to the pictures and we'll just talk to those real quickly. You can see the upper left-hand corner is the pool building looking due north. You see the opening where that front-end loader just came through there, and that's about to be filled in the next week or two. But there's the pool. You can see the scale with the gentleman there at the bottom, and they're moving in there. You see some of the piping going in there. The painted dance studio there to the right. This is out. This will be the infield of the softball field. So to the far west of the site is the softball field. This pad was laid down as a laydown pad, and then they form up and pour the walls, individual sections, if you will. Then they stand those up and start to form dugouts, the press box, those types of things, just like the building itself. So this concrete pad underneath there will eventually go away, and that will be the infield for the girls softball. But they're using it now as a preparation pad to pour the concrete and the tilt-up panels. Looking to the south and to the east there, back at the existing building, you kind of see through some of the grading there. Here's I thought was a good slide from our drone. You can see the football field up there in the upper left-hand corner. The pool building just beyond our new building, the brand new building right there. You can see where the tennis courts are going to lie versus the artificial turf and the grass fields. These fields are all to the north of the athletic complex right there. The pool to the right.
And where are the softball fields? Where was that slab on this picture?
Further, where it says grass turf field, just keep going west and you would bump into it.
West, okay.
Yeah, just keep going down the hill.
The softball field is in the same location as it's always been, so that...
Actually,
Yes,
yeah, I remember
thank you.
now where
Yes,
it-
thank you.
okay,
Same
great.
location. I was also going to show you, I don't know, you can see, I think we talked about it last month, but up there in the, kind of the corner there, yeah, you see the retaining wall and the orange blankets that they've got covered with snow. That's the ADA ramp that's going to be heated there, as well as the retaining wall that will run all the way along where that dirt, the elevation grade change happens right there. Tennis courts will be elevated up, 2 fields down below, so it'll be a very nice layout there. Looking straight south down the west property line where we have the back of the homeowners there, and their construction access is now over here on the west side of the property, no longer off of the east side and the north side. It's been shifted. We got green screen, huh? There we go. This is looking northeast. You can see the football field and actually the baseball field even further up there in the corner, where that green building is drawn in by sketch. That is, well, excuse me, the pool is to the left up here, and then you can see where we moved the cafeteria, and then the existing gym and the existing auditorium are still there. That will come down over a period of time, but you can see, and the pool building is sandwiched in between there. If you see that building up there with the, right there where Don's pointing, that will come down this summer, and as we start to form down here in this dirt area is where the new footings and infrastructure for the new academic building will be going. Okay, that's it for the pictures, and then the change orders on the table that you've seen in front of you for the Skyline project are the MOCA one we've talked about. I'll just go over, and then we also have the Elevate one for additional fees, as well as the Elevate one for furniture design. Those are the 3 that we have for Skyline. Sorry, we're losing Buster. There we go. And so those, I think you all have a copy of those. If there's any questions we need to talk about that, I know we've heard concerns and comments. Anything else we want to discuss about those?
So are these change orders that are reflected here coming out of the contingency at this point, or where are they accounted for from a budgetary standpoint?
Yeah, when you say contingency, it's not out of the construction contingency. Well, maybe I'm getting very specific now. We have a construction contingency between us and the contractor that we take care of things, but that's not where these are coming out of.
So are they coming out of the 15%?
These are design-related or construction management-related change orders. These are on the soft cost side. And so these would be funds that would be balanced out of all of our soft costs. So again, when we budget, our development pro forma has roughly 70 line items in it. And we're estimating, right, and we come up with a chunk of money. And in that chunk of money, sometimes you use all of the money in one line item and sometimes you don't in another. And so it's all about kind of the contingency built in that soft cost budget. So right now we have not exceeded our planned spend budgetary numbers. So while it's a change order to the PO's let, it's not an over budget discussion. So these are funds that still exist today.
So yeah, I should have been more clear in my question. It's coming from a contingency within the soft cost, not the hard cost contingency.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, correct.
Is that part of the 22 million that?
More or less, yes. That's a good way to phrase it. Okay, so let's move on to the Cypress High School project. A lot of work going on the underground plumbing and underground electric, continuing with footings, foundations, and drilling of heat source wells, et cetera. So again, we're often looking at these global, where the heck are we positions on the site, and so you can see, again, the easiest way in the lower right-hand side picture to find the academic wing is the big slope of earth, because it's a story lower than the majority of the building. So you can see that we're working hard, we're drilling wells, we're putting in a lot of underground plumbing. Here we're starting to do mock-ups of the wall sections. So each contractor, when we build a building, has to do a mock-up so we can see if they're using their materials correctly, if they're meeting the design intent. So these are walls before we allow them to build walls. And so they'll start to tilt these up, and we'll make sure that they're doing their construction techniques the way the architects want them to do them. And then they're starting to pour their casting beds. Justin explained that process earlier. Again, more earthwork, footings and foundations. We're running roughly 100 to 110 crew members on the site each day. You do have 2 change orders before you this evening. Again, one is a design fee adjustment that helps us. So again, this was a service that we did not initially take with the designer's agreement for the furnishings component. We had an individual in purchasing who had built quite the resume and portfolio on interior furnishings, and we thought we'd just continue with that gentleman. He resigned and left us for another job late last year. And so we did not have the expertise that we needed. And so this is a reflection of needing help to take us through the furniture acquisition side, the design and acquisition, selection, et cetera. So this is the DFA number 6 is for a designer to help us through that process. There is one hard cost change order here. And again, this is a change order as peer review happens on the structural analysis. They determined that we did not have, in some locations, adequate connections between the panels and the floor deck and the roof joists. And so this is a change order to beef up the amount of steel that we're using in these connection points to make sure that the building maintains its seismic stability. So it's not uncommon to have structural peer reviews pick up elements. The timing often happens after the bid. We wanted to take advantage of a bidding climate, knowing that this structural engineering cost, they would have found this no matter when we did it, and it would have been included in the construction cost. Okay, it's not we could have got away with it. We needed this tonnage of steel no matter what we did. It's coming after because we had an analysis where we looked at it and we said, do we bid now before the structural peer review is done, taking advantage of maybe pricing today, buying steel cheaper in August than trying to buy steel in December when all the structural peer review would be done. We decided we'd save more money buying the bulk of the steel at the lower fall price than waiting for all of the peer reviews to be done and locking in our pricing at the later winter price. And so while this is a change order, it still on the whole is cheaper to do it this way by advancing the bid and then taking minimal changes later on. Does that make sense why the timing looks the way it does? And so this is a change order because we do have to add additional structural steel to the building.
So you're saying that really the change here is the timing, not the cost?
We would have been paying for the cost of the steel no matter what.
Or actually you're saying the cost overall would be lower because of the change of time?
We believe so, because we bid, the massive tonnage earlier. This is a little bit of additional tonnage that came in later at that inflated cost. So instead of having 100% bid at the inflated cost, we have 2% bid at the inflated cost.
So I just want to make sure. So here, where it says under the summary, the bid price and the revised cost, that is the general construction cost, not the all-in cost.
That is correct. This is the Westland general contractor construction cost going up. And again, we keep contingency for these type of change orders. If you remember, we said we would expect 1% to 2% worth of change orders in a design bid build contract. And we're receiving some of those now.
I'm feeling a little bit like, for the sake of transparency, I wonder if the all-in cost ought to be on these summaries that you present to us every month. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. I'm just thinking through this new information, letting it sink in.
Here's a word of caution that we often use in the industry. If you reveal how much money you have to a contractor, they will find a way to get it. They'll feel like they left money on the table. So I'm not sure, you know, that's one of the reasons why line iteming out this may not be the best thing for the project. Bidders will also see as
I'll
they're
think
bidding.
about it, Don.
As they're bidding furnishings, they'll see, oh, you really do have this much, and suddenly the bids will start to climb. So I'm not sure that that's something that we want to really push. They are, that it is a competitive bid environment, but when the project budget is known for each individual element, you'll find it pushes closer to the upper limit than the lower limit.
That's true, but we've also got a killer negotiator, Don. That's you.
No, we don't negotiate these. We put them out and they give us a bid and we
Well,
take
but
it.
I mean, you're saying that we can't say, hey, we know that that Salt Lake District paid this much for this. We can't say that to them?
That's not how state procurement law is written. And we rely
Really?
on the purchasing department to do this, but I think that's a generalized statement that rings true. They give you a sealed bid and you accept it. And you accept the lowest responsible bidder.
That does not sound like a law that is in the state's best interest when it comes to things like how much things cost. It's very interesting. I have to think a lot about that.
That is correct. Yep.
Yes, and another, may I? Thank you. Another strategy is, that we use in certain circumstances is what is a BAFO, right? A best and final offer. You get all the bids in, you're like, okay, is this really it? I mean, so there are strategies that we can and have engaged in times past on various contracts. But at the end of the day, the procurement code is very strict. Violation of it comes with criminal penalties. And we're doing the best we can to navigate that. And we have some of the best helping us navigate that internally. I think to the all-in cost, Board Member Jackson, that we could consider is not necessarily showing maybe what is still set aside for some of those areas per se, but what are we, when it comes to something like this, what are those expenditures as they are coming that would go to and inform the all-in cost as we've already made, or as you approve that, to have that listed as well, right? So things that the board is approving that go to the all-in cost without necessarily, to Don's point, revealing what the exact budget is that we have for certain line items for things that are coming that may affect bids in the future. So there's still opportunity to have some of those numbers very present.
So the change order that we have today, is that reflected here, the one for the furniture, is that on this right now that we're seeing?
You're seeing reflected, this is the Westland Construction Change Order number 4 for structural steel. You had a bid price showing up at 169, and then the revised number is now 170 million.
So I guess that's the question then. Can we, maybe that's what you're alluding to, can we have a separate, either a separate slide or a separate column where, even though we don't necessarily need you to tell us what the final is, but can we just at least see that running total of, okay, now for the FFE, this is what we're putting here, that 20 or that 15%?
Yeah, we'll be thinking through the best way to present that. We just need to find the best way to inform the board, yet not hinder our ability to get best prices at the end of the day.
Sure.
That's a great challenge, and we'll accept it and try and find out the best way to present.
And perhaps executive session is a tool?
I don't think it's allowed in exec session. I'd have to ask.
As a budgetary, just budgetary, not, no?
No,
Not, but no.
You can discuss the property negotiations, purchases, that sort of thing should be part of the closed session.
Okay. All right, is that I don't have the slideshow pulled up, is that the end of it?
I think that was the last
Yeah,
slide.
we're just going to now go back to the Westlake
Okay.
slide, so we can talk a little bit about
Before we do that real quick, does anybody else have any other questions? Karen, did you have any questions remaining? Correct, yeah. He said no budget talk in executive session.
So for the groundbreaking of Westlake Junior, the current concept, and this was a concept that was brought forth by Dr. Howe, he said, wouldn't it be nice to hold the groundbreaking on the anniversary of the earthquake? So that would be March 18th, meaning it was the earthquake that damaged the building that set us on this pathway moving forward. So we're proffering that as a March 18 groundbreaking, occurring most likely the first time frame that we're floating out is 4 p.m. So March 18, I believe, is a Friday, which may not be optimal because some folks may come, decide to make it a trip out of town on the weekend, et cetera. But there is some reason to do it on the 18th, and 4 o'clock seems to allow staffers and other interested members of the community to come in and celebrate the groundbreaking with us. We did the prior groundbreaking in the evening, just like the suggestion.
Any questions? Comments? Awesome. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right. Next up, we have human trafficking grant update. I'm going to turn the time over to David Gomez.
Well, thank you for allowing us some time, short time, to talk about the demonstration grant that we've received as granted. And I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we've been doing with that grant over the last, this one, right? Okay. The last year and a half or so. And so thank you for allowing us to do this. I do have Terry Palmer here with me tonight, and she is a sub-grant working for the Protect sub-grant that has really helped us to get to this point where we are today. She is the state director for the Protect group that has really been instrumental. As you may have known, I know we're into February, but January was the National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and we did have some things that were happening throughout our district and throughout the state as part of that Awareness Month. Want to just emphasize these points. It is a global issue. Utah has the 8th highest reported cases. I'm not sure if you guys were aware of that. When compared to the top 10 states per capita. Granite School District, as you know, was awarded this demonstration grant, and it is a 3-year grant. We are in the 2nd year of our grant so far. We're only 8 of districts that have been awarded this grant, which is really quite nice for us to put our mark on the map. We're the first federal program specifically designed to educate and build resiliency to human trafficking in children and youth within our schools. The state and federal approved curriculum that focuses on 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th grade students puts focus on awareness and prevention education. Currently, all district personnel have been going through the human trafficking prevention module that is on our vector training. It's now risen. It's not 2,134, but it's now over 3,000 of our staff members have gone through this module and completed it. I think also board members will be taking that module training as well. And it does allow us at the end to give opportunity for folks to add their stories. And I just wanted to share one quickly with you from one of our elementary schools. This is what this teacher had to say. Human trafficking is a serious and devastating problem in our communities. It is something that we do not hear about often, and perhaps that is why it is not discussed or talked about as much as it should be. I am passionate about being an advocate for children's emotional and physical well-being. As a mother and a teacher, I think human trafficking is a critical topic to be well informed on. After taking this course, I recognize the importance of watching for warning signs in children and utilizing the help of resources available, such as social workers, admin, and organizations like DCFS. It is especially important in the community in which I teach, since there are many at-risk children. Children will not always speak if something is happening to them, since they may feel loyal to their abuser. So watching out for warning signs in other ways is important. It is not just my job to educate, but to keep our children safe, and I consider myself lucky to be able to do so. That came from one of the elementary schools. So those are the kind of stories that we're getting now, and I think, Terry, I think we have over 1,000 stories in our bank that we can refer to and look at as giving us, momentum moving forward. The grant offers outreach to families and community partners to teach the prevention and identification of children in crisis and how to safely intervene. And it also establishes that coordinated response to human trafficking with those protocols, with law enforcement and other service organizations ensuring an effective response. I just put together a quick little timeline to give you a glance of where we're at. Began around September 2020. That's when the grant was awarded. As I mentioned, we're in our second year. We've been able to, with huge help from Three Strands Global Foundation, but also Protect, that Terry is a part of, really helped us to look at those protocols, get the training module up and running, and then also the curriculum, which has been approved by the OTIP, which is the federal program that oversees this demonstration grant. We just got done doing our trainer of trainer in January, and that was given to counselors and social workers. We chose 2 networks to start with, Cottonwood and Granger Network, and that had about 15 participants in it. Very well done. We did that. We had to shift to an online format, and our team really did a great job being able to do that. And so moving forward, we're looking at, continuing to work with networks, train them on the trainer concept, collaborate with outside agencies, and then as well as looking at collecting that data. That's going to be huge moving forward from here on out in the grant. And then what do we do with that data? How are we using it to really help kids and help families to move forward? That's really all I had to bring you up to speed with. Any questions or comments that you may have?
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
We'll be giving more updates as the grant goes on and the year goes on, but just thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, we're at the end of this grant period, what next?
Yeah.
What should we be looking at as a board and as a district and as a community, really?
Very good question. We did get accepted to go into our 3rd year, and so we're putting a plan in place to send into OTIP, and hopefully they will accept that, but we are accepted to have a 3rd year. And so there is talk, although federal government right now has not decided on a budget for this particular OTIP agency. So there is a chance that they could, under the demonstration grant, have a 4th year, but if they don't go that route, then they'll open it up for districts to apply for a regular grant. And so that's something that we would love to look at, and we'll be going into it with obviously a leg up, because we'll have the data and the programs there to support it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yep.
So this also, the curriculum is on for us to be able to view, for us to see. This will be, the curriculum will be coming up during the study session for us to approve. So please take the time in the next 2 weeks to look over that curriculum. Is it also, available online? Ben, has it been put online for parent approval or?
Not yet, but we're also working through getting parent letters moving forward because there will need to be an opt-out option on there for parents who do not want their children to go through the curriculum and teaching.
Julie?
So that curriculum, like a link to it, will be in our agenda for next month, or where do we find the curriculum?
I believe it was in.
We had one.
The
We had one. I
email
couldn't
from
open it. Rick
Stacy.
is going to work with us to make sure that gets open, but we had a link.
Where
in
did we
the-
get it? Where will I find it?
From Rick.
Oh,
Stacy-
Rick Lent?
Stacy sent it in the.
Uh-huh.
Oh, in this month's agenda?
Yeah, not in the agenda, but in the supplementary documents. There's
It was one of the
there was-
PowerPoints
yeah,
that I did.
one of
Okay.
them.
There's Senator separate cover, and I believe that'll be on the consent agenda for next meeting.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Thank you, Dave and Terry.
Thank you.
I think we all recognize that this is an important issue, especially here in Utah, and we are happy to have this grant and be able to do this. So thank you. We appreciate your work on this. All right. We are going to break right now for dinner, and we will reconvene at 7 o'clock. We're good?